Hello and welcome to the TuneIn podcast. I am Golia and your host for today. And thank you so much for joining me, Jemma Hardell. And would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks, Kat. So as Kat said, I'm Gemma and I have been on a therapeutic journey over about the last 5 years. And I am a therapist working in the LGBTQIA community, not completely exclusively. I do welcome anyone that doesn't represent in that community as well. But mainly my clients do focus on gender, sex, and relationship diversity as well. And of course, when we're dealing with a community that's wide and interesting, then we also get other parts that come into play as well, which is all the kind of richness of life, like romantic relationships, attachment, how we deal with parenting, how we deal with our own parents, and all of the things that just like naturally come in, and also neurodiversity as well. It's also a really big one that comes up from time to time. I'd say every day it comes into the therapy room.
Yeah, all stuff that I'm so interested in. And I think firstly, it'd be really great to hear about your personal story. And I find it fascinating the way that you really have your relationship but you can explain a little bit actually what your journey is. And I'll leave that part to you.
Okay, let's go for it.
Yes.
I guess the last 10 years, I guess the part that I want to maybe really explain is that nothing has to stay the same. It's all about designing a relationship style and a relationship that feels right for you, your partner, your family, your time of life, your career. Like, let's look at taking away from the traditional models that society creates, which usually is this one structure of, under the umbrella called monogamy. And of course, we know that divorce is like massively on the rise. I think it's over 50% of marriages end up in divorce. And it doesn't always seem to be that monogamy works for everyone as a one size fits all structure from the whole of their life all the way through. So I think monogamy worked great when we had a life expectancy of about 40. And now we're living to our 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s into our hundreds because of medical intervention. And we're expected to have one partner that takes us through all of those decades. It can, without reinventing your relationship, redesigning the relationship, finding out something that might work at those different stages of your life, then how do you grow with someone and how do you evolve the relationship and hitting those different points as you're growing and changing as an individual as well?
Yeah, because you are a completely different person. Even me, I've been with my husband for 3.5 years and I'm already so different to who I was when I met him. Actually, it's insane how different I am. Essentially, I'm the same person, but I've grown so much. And I think that's really important that even if you are and we'll speak about all that kind of stuff, which is fascinates me. But even if you are in a monogamous relationship, which I feel suits me and my attachment style well, we have to really check in with each other and really grow together, right? Not just here you meet and then 30 years later, you don't know each other anymore. But of course you don't, because what they say, you've died and been birthed like 100 different lives since you've met somebody. But so I think, that's really important with people who are together for a long time. But so it's something that I'm really interested in with the polyamory world is I'm interested in what kind of people are attracted to being polyamorous, because I feel that me having an anxious attachment style, I've diagnosed myself as that. I do think that's my style. I would just find it, oh my gosh, I'd be an absolute wreck. I think I wouldn't be able to handle it at all. And do people with different attachment styles have those kind of relationships? What do you see with your work?
Yes, I definitely see that people with all attachment styles try different ways of relating. And if you even think about that within monogamy, we've got all those attachment styles in monogamy, but that's why we've got such a high rate of affairs and secrecy
Mm.
and everything. Where there is some kind of security from monogamy, it's a pseudo security, really, because do we ever really know what's going on with our partner and who they're texting or who they're flirting with at work, how they're getting their emotional needs met? So I think that it does create more of a safe structure for us to believe in monogamy. However, monogamy and affairs have gone hand in hand for years and years. So it will settle an anxious attachment, believing that's not working. But I think going back to your original point of how many times you've grown, you've changed, you've developed, and you've evolved as a female in a partnered relationship, that unless you're also doing stuff to be able to, for that relationship to grow and develop with you, one gets left behind. I think that the people that try open, poly, swinging, monogamish, as you said, I can explain a little bit about that term as well as we go on, but it's completely varied. It is, I've known people that are from all over the world, from all walks of life and all attachment styles, actually. It's not just, I'd say you have an easier time with it, depending if you have a more secure attachment style. You would have an easier time with, say, something like polyamory. However, you could have two people and they're maybe they've just got a thirst for new novelty. Maybe they like the high intensity. They like the rush of dopamine, which you get a lot with neurodivergence as well in particular. And that they're looking together to create these moments of spice, connection, thrills, seeking. And actually that can really work well for people, maybe in a swinging dynamic, or as some people use sex workers as well, to have a threesome, for instance, or to create maybe when we're on holiday, we might just do something while we're away, because it feels a bit detached from reality. It feels detached from your safe hub, your home.
Yeah.
And you can maybe play a little bit more with rewriting the rules of what your relationship style looks like. Yeah, I think in answer to your question, everyone can, if there's not set people which are the only people that kind of follow this way, but there are definitely people that probably find it easier, I would say, and attachment styles that would find it more tricky, or you just have to do a lot more work to get there.
Yeah. What do you think about, I'm just going to be devil's advocate here, about people? I've heard people say, oh, people are polyamorous, they just don't want commitment. It's just kind of thing. They can't really commit. So they're just, oh, I'll just have different relationships because they're commitment phobes.
Yeah, you hear that quite often. And I think actually, if you've ever been in a polyamorous relationship, you'll probably know it's the opposite, actually.
Okay.
And actually, if you just think about how committed you have to be to each relationship to keep it going, and how committed because you're not just there for sex. A polyamorous relationship is about multiple loves. To be committed to seeing another partner, investing emotional time with them, checking in with them, holding them when they're emotionally vulnerable, and to explore life with them, with multiple people, it's like the opposite of avoidance, really, if you're doing it in that way, because you are not just picking people up and dropping them, you're having proper relationships with them. So I think that it gets a bit of a bad rap from that kind of a point of view of saying, oh, everyone's just all avoidant. I think that some people definitely are. Some people definitely are avoidant, and they use the term maybe solo poly, or they use the term polyamorous, but that's no different to other people just saying, oh, I'm single, and then still having an affair or something like that. So I think that actually polyamory takes so much commitment to growth, so much commitment to time, energy, how you spread your week, scheduling, that it's definitely you're not doing that because you're just an avoidant. That's for sure.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. And I think something that I mentioned to you before we did this podcast as well is I was speaking to somebody and he was explaining how much, and of course it depends on the personality and so on, but he was saying how it's like a constant, like almost a struggle, not a struggle with yourself, but a constant having to look at yourself and having to deal with triggers. And because everyone's human at the end of the day, whether you're monogamous, whether you're with polyamory, we all have feelings. We're all going to have jealousy. We're all going to have envy. They are human emotions. If you're with someone and they've got, oh, I've got a date with somebody else, and you feel that is, I think it's truly quite amazing, to be honest. And I'm a bit in awe with being able to really sit with yourself and work through that, because it just feels, and I could be wrong, it's only my perception of what I've heard, that it's a constant having to look at yourself and a constant having to set boundaries and with yourself and with other people. So to me, it seems like almost like like personal growth and spirituality and all of that as well.
Yeah, I think that there's a few kind of parts there. Like, you definitely have to work on communication. You need to work on your boundaries, and you definitely have to work on probably your anchors, why you want this relationship style. But I think also on the flip side, the other thing to look at is that whilst you can do that growth, and whilst it will take you on a journey, that is absolutely for sure. It should bend you, but not break you.
Mm.
And if it starts to break you and your attachment styles, because if you've got abandonment history in your life, if it flares these kind of like feelings up, then actually, is it where you want to be, or is it where you want to be right now? And how that changes. So speaking from personal experience myself, I started off in more of an open, kind of sexually open situation after about 10 years of being with my husband. We would go to parties and we would essentially go abroad and have fun. And then we'd come back and we'd be parents and we'd be back into our normal day-to-day life. And that evolves time. And over time, you start to test those boundaries and you get a little bit more comfortable as well. And you get a little bit more like, oh, okay, we're secure here. This is still working. And oh, this is a thrill, and this is a high, and this is novel, and this is new. And it can reinvigorate your sex life as well as a couple. But then let's say nothing stays the same. One person might be wanting a little bit more connection and wanting a little bit more emotional connection from other people. And someone else is just, I'm just happy to turn up and have the sex. So then as a couple, even though you've agreed on this way of kind of this lifestyle, this way of living at one point, or what happens 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years is things start evolving, and your boundaries do change as a couple, and you do then start experimenting with different styles. Some people stay just as they are. I would say just on a whole, I see that people do tend to push the boundaries because you're looking for that next high. You're looking for that next dopamine hit. If you do what you always did, you get what you've always got, but it doesn't work like that with sex. It starts and then it starts to feel a little bit less exciting, you get a little bit bored of even doing the hedonism, for instance. I think it is a lot of work and it is a lot of growth, and you have to I would always recommend, if you're going into an open, poly, fluid, flexible, monogamous, all of those relationship styles, to have good support structure. And if possible, via a therapist like myself that works in gender, sex, relationship diversity, and actually a community of people that have been there, that have made loads of mistakes themselves, and I could understand how this all works, because it will trigger. It
Yeah.
will absolutely trigger. And I think some people are polyamorous through orientation, and some people it's more of a kind of like lifestyle, because maybe they happen to find themselves in this dynamic more. But some people can be like, no, I've always known all of my life. Every time I've dated, I never wanted to be exclusive. So I think there are lots of scales as we talk about neurodivergence, and like a massive scale. We talk about just people's threshold as well for how they want to design their lives and how they want to design it at different points and different times of their life as well.
Yeah, gosh, there's so much to learn from it, isn't there? Because I guess when you're monogamous, you find that person, and yeah, you obviously have things to work through and finding yourself through that. But it's pretty like static. They're not static, but it's okay. We're getting married. This is what we're going to do. And we should check in with each other and do all of that, which doesn't always happen because you had that security. I guess you haven't got the thinking about other people and having to check in and seeing and having that reflection from all different people as well. And I
Yep.
know that it's really interesting. So I'd really like to know a little bit more about the monogamish as well, because I know I've only heard this one in the last year. So
Yeah,
yeah,
monogamish, it's a term that Dan Savage, he's a great podcaster and speaker on open poly relationships. And it's a term he coined to be mainly monogamous, but with an ish. I would describe it to be kind of exclusive with some wiggle room now and again. The ish is up to you to decide what that looks like. It
yeah,
could be, okay, if I'm ever out of the country and you're not with me, and you end up in a proposition that it just, wow, this is too good to say no to. Like a hall pass, we would call it, wouldn't we? Just like, can I spend my hall pass? Or the celebrity crush or something.
yeah, yeah,
Or yeah, something that doesn't then completely redefine the whole structure of the relationship. And that is just one-offs here and there with some, as I say, some wiggle room, some flexibility. So I would describe monogamish.
yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Where did it begin of as being like one? Because I don't actually believe that it should be one person for what I know penguins do and lobsters maybe some other thing that animal kingdom. But I'm just curious as to where this started. Like this one person, because I'm sure it wasn't like that thousands of years ago. I don't know where society brought that in.
Yeah, a lot changed when land ownership changed as well for women. So when women, we would have much more open or fluid relationships, like historically, and obviously the
Hmm.
animal kingdom definitely do. But then if you think about when the when the kind of farming revolution thing happens as well, and then women couldn't operate the heavy machinery. And so men would operate the heavy machinery on like land and farms, and then men got to own land. And basically, women couldn't own land. So women had to tie themselves to a man for support and security.
Wow.
So we used to be foragers, right? We used to be able to go and pick up berries and live off the land. But then when you've got something like a structure where it's all of a sudden you've got machinery and everything, and then you've got fences around farmland and everything, and now men are the only ones that can pass down land, that creates a patriarchal society. And it
Yeah.
creates a society where women, we have to tie ourselves to a man, and we adopt the male name as well. So we create a monogamous structure. And also men, because what in different tribes, women would actually sleep with a multitude of men years ago. And the reason why they do that is because there's actually safety for a woman, because we didn't have paternity tests back then. And what we would have is if I've slept with the warrior, if I've slept with the sage, if I've slept with the hunter, if I've slept with the blacksmith, let's just say, or whoever all those kind of roles were back then. And if all of them know that they've had some romantic liaison with me, and I'm pregnant and have a child, the chances are that I've got many partners to look out for me and that child, because they
Yeah.
don't know if they're the father.
Wow.
So there's
Yeah.
actually safety for women in doing that kind of way. But then obviously as history came on and we became owners of things and didn't all work together in tribes, let's say, then do men want to provide for a child that they don't know is their blood? And it becomes very separate, and it becomes, I want to know that's my child. So I only want you to have sex with me. So then I know if whatever children are we're having, I'm providing, and it's my heir, and it's being followed down, and they're getting my money, and they're getting my land, and they're getting my title. And so we create these kind of systems.
Yeah. And it's amazing how the system is it's mad because I'm pretty, yeah, I'm modern. My husband's modern. We're not like you're the guy and you have to do this. But I do even find you just fall into these like roles. And, I've said it like, why, God, it's just naturally, like even with like dinner, or I don't know, he has a daughter, but I'm like, if she needs something and like food wise, I'll think about it. And I'm like, gosh, you just end up falling into it's so deeply ingrained. But
Mm.
I do believe there is a part of me that really does believe that we shouldn't just be with one person. Not that I don't want to be. Like, I'm happy. It serves me. But yeah, it's crazy how ingrained it is. And you were saying that you feel that monogamy could learn, as in the monogamous relationships could learn from polyamory as well. And I'd be interested to see what you meant by that as well. What could we learn?
Yeah, for sure. So I think when you take like a framework like polyamory and you've got multiple people and you've got multiple considerations there as well, if you apply that to monogamy or being exclusive, the level of communication you have to do has to naturally go up hundreds of percent to be able to um, navigate multiple relationships. So thinking about, okay, something like you mentioned it before, doing a check-in. Okay.
Yeah.
So also designing what kind of relationship style you might want to have when you're younger, or if you've got married, who made the decision? Okay, I'm going to go and do this role. I'm going to go and do this role. Was there ever a discussion around it, or did you fall into your gender roles?
Yeah. Definitely
Uh,
fell into them.
Fed into them, yeah. So, and I think that the polyamorous community and the open kind of community, if you've got a structure for that as well, for the way of living, you've got things like imagining what kind of relationship style you'd want. So, I work with a 7-step program with my clients, and some of those things are okay, before we do anything, else, before we step into any kind of like other territory, let's just imagine what that could look like. Let's just think about, how would it feel if we had a girlfriend together? How would it feel if we were monogamish? What could be some of the positives and what could be some of the negatives? And imagining both of those to get a balanced picture, because some people just like, sounds great. We can have spicy liaisons.
Yeah.
But let's also imagine how that could feel and what that might bring up from an attachment point of view and triggers. So then we go from looking at that kind of style, we go, okay, that's just like imagining. And so then we go at designing it. Okay, so what does that actually mean to us? Is that just a holiday romance? Is that something that when we're traveling, you might be able to dip into? Is that something we do together? Is that something we do separately? And how much information do you want to know? So
Yeah.
how much would you want to know? Do you want me to tell you if I've had a spicy liaison with someone else? Or would you rather a don't ask, don't tell? So there's just so
Wow.
many different parts there. And the level of communication on, okay, monogamous relationships could look at and that they could think about. And then contracting, let's contract for the changes in the relationship and what that might look like. And look at how we divide our lives and look at how we do check-ins to check each other's okay as well, and that everyone still feels safe and secure. So there's so many different parts. As I say, I work in a 7-stage model, and
Mm.
not a linear process. It's not, I'll take you from here to here and you've ticked the box and it's complete. It really, and most people jump in and come to see me or a different therapist or coach when they've experimented and it's gone wrong.
Yeah, because you have two different people who are like, say, for example, my husband's definitely more secure than me, for sure. But even when you're talking, I can already feel like I know that even though I love the sound of it, I think it's great if you can just go off and have some wiggle room. But then I would automatically be like, oh my God, but what if he just realizes that there's so much more excitement out there and doesn't love me anymore? Or you meet someone, it just happens, he has such a spark with even more than me, and that's it. And I'm being open-minded, and now I've lost him. So that's my anxious attachment as well, probably at play.
Yeah, I do. That's part of how you feel about yourself, really. And I would say it's a really normal feeling. And actually, people that are polyamorous still have that feeling. We
Yeah.
still have jealousy. We still have anxiety. We still have all different attachment styles. And I think that the kind of misconception is that we have to be totally secure to be able to experiment and try new things. And actually, what I think it is, it's about being able to have strong enough communication so that when that part has come up and it triggers and it pains and it really hurts, enough relationship with yourself and your partner to be able to share that vulnerability. And it's the sharing of the vulnerability that we can say, hey, by the way, can I just let you know, I'm just feeling really triggered right now. I'm just feeling really jealous. I'm feeling like I'm not good enough. And what if I leave you? And, or what if you leave me? And what if I'm left and feeling abandoned? What if I regret all of these decisions that we've made? And that feels really scary to me. And being
Yeah.
able to have that conversation together will actually bring, because that's what that true vulnerability, and true vulnerability is true intimacy. And
Yeah.
so
You're so right.
when we have those conversations together and we can offer reassurances and we can say, oh, I really hear you. I really hear that that's a real worry for you. Is there
Mm.
anything you need from me right now? And it enables the other person to be able to respond and say, actually, I just really need a hug and reassurance, or it's going all too fast for me. Can we slow down? And like all of those things are absolutely fine. And that's why all attachment styles do these different relationship styles. But it depends on how much you know yourself, how much you know your triggers, how hard you're prepared to work on them, and how vulnerable you can be in those moments. And also your window of tolerance as well.
Mm.
Because if you're just feeling like it's constantly coming at you and you're just constantly triggered all the time, it's not good for your nervous system to be like that. And actually, maybe you need to look at why you're still trying to do that relationship style. And maybe that's some conditioning, some script work that's in there that you've written when you're young. Like, love always has to feel hard. I
Mm.
have to really try. I've got to overextend myself. I have to please to just to get the love I need, or I have to work extra hard to get the love I need. And then we start looking at the psychotherapy part behind all of this, which is our deep-seated scripts that we've written and narratives that we've written about ourselves when we're young. And we have to unpick a lot of those to be able to do to do any relationship style, actually. Unpicking all
Yeah.
of those, because you'll come up with that within monogamy as well.
And it is any relationship that we can really learn from this. And with monogamy, it can be like that, because if you don't say things, and obviously I've done enough work and I know I want to be vulnerable in mine, but even sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't really want to admit this because it's just a bit deep and it's a bit tender. And then the other person, I did it the other day, and it was really nice because my husband was like, oh, is there anything I can do? Are you missing your family? So I'll take you, show me to go over and see them, like to make you feel better. And I was like, oh, thanks. And I was like, I'm so glad that I said something, because it was supported, and it goes both ways, doesn't it? And I think having that check-in, whatever kind of relationship that you have, is just so important, because otherwise years go by, before you know it, you're strangers and you don't know each other anymore. Right. And that's when people are getting divorced and so on. So if I find it really fascinating, it is something that you said as well. It's crazy how we have these misconceptions, isn't it? Because we just assume, but even I was like, oh, people who are polyamorous, like maybe they're just like much stronger, and maybe they just like feel jealousy as much. And of course you do, you're human, but it's great to really talk about it and get it out there a bit more and uncover all of these things as well. Because for me, it's been the last few years that I've really heard about it more. And I think especially being in the spiritual community and personal development community, I feel like it is more prevalent. Or is that just me? Am I in an echo chamber?
Well, I think you probably come across people that are a bit more open as well.
Yeah, makes
And
sense.
actually, I think on average, about 45% of the population disclose that they're in kind of some kind of open relationship. But it's predicted that it's actually a lot higher than that, because there's a lot of
Oh.
people that keep it very behind closed doors and wouldn't, if you ask someone, are you monogamous or are you in an open relationship? And there was a tick box somewhere. A lot of people hide that because of stigma,
Mm.
prejudice. In some countries, obviously, it's illegal. And in other countries, there is a real fear of legal I can't say the word, ramifications from seeing as perverted and seen as a child protection issue as well.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay, I didn't know that.
yeah, there's lots and lots. It becomes political as well
Mm.
within this. So people's choices for being able to disclose, have this level of self-disclosure on the relationship style that they're choosing, it's up on lots of things. And you think there's another part there, which is all about like couple privilege. And just think about all the things like when you die, it goes to your next of kin, let's just say,
Yeah.
and power of attorney, where that goes. And all this much, you can get married to one person at a time. The
Mm.
society set up as a structure that supports monogamous relationships, really, because society doesn't do well in let's think about society's terms. If you've got loads of single men running round, and then you've got one man with lots of wives taking up the pool of lots of wives, because society doesn't want loads of men going around, because men tend to be a little bit more, in historical terms, settled when they settle, because a woman is quite grounding for them.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm thinking, actually, mine was the opposite way around. My husband's definitely grounded me. He's
I
the
think,
grounded one. Yeah, for sure. I was just like all over the place. When I met him, it was like, yeah, he 100% grounds me. But yeah, but generally, it is the way. But it's not to learn from it. And we could actually, I know we haven't got ages today, but there's lots and lots more I want to talk to you about as well. But what would you say to someone who was, and of course you work with people like this, I'm sure lots of people come to you with this question, like someone who was maybe in a monogamous relationship. Let's take me. I'm not saying this is my example of what I'm going to do,
boom,
but say,
asking for
asking for a friend. But it was a long-term relationship who actually says, oh, do you know what? I'm getting a little bit like bored with the same person, and I really want to experiment, but I don't know how to say it to my husband. There's putting you on the spot here a little bit, but it just came into my head. What would you say what would be the first step? Or it doesn't have to be husband, it could be wife.
Yeah, it's a difficult conversation to bring up, isn't it? It's really
Mm.
tough. It's not easy to go from, oh, hey, what do you want on your dinner? What do you want for dinner? To, hey, how about an open relationship? Or what does that look like? And I think there has to be an element of play that maybe
Yeah.
facilitates that question. So when you're in your playful space, when you're in do you create time for that playful space so that you can have those conversations and you can think, okay, let's just imagine. Is there time to be creative and just imagine and decide, oh, what do you think about this subject? Or what do you think about that? And if someone really wants to be open and the other person even have that conversation with the other person,
Mm.
there's a lot of work to do. I guess the one thing that strikes out to me is, okay, what do you think you're going to get from the open relationship that you're not getting now? So is that just what you think is a solution?
Mm.
Or actually, is it a structure that you've always felt and you've never felt that you could explore? Are you stepping into your authenticity on actually monogamy really doesn't suit me? Or what discussions do you have to have about your own relationship style? Maybe even like invisible labor, why we fall into the gender roles and things like that. And then how we can lose that kind of like spark, that frisson of energy. And maybe we're thinking an open relationship is going to come in and is going to be able to put all of that back. And without dealing with the other stuff, you have to deal with the other stuff first. So an open relationship won't just paper over cracks. It will
Yeah.
expose all of the cracks in your relationship unless you're
Mm.
on your face.
Yeah, that's really interesting actually, because you don't know whether it's just, oh, I'm getting a bit bored. So a new person or someone who comes in is going to make it exciting again. So really looking at, okay, what is the reason first? And have I dealt with that in this relationship yet? And if I'm getting bored, say I'm getting bored of sex or I'm getting bored of the same thing all the time, have I approached that with my partner first? And can I deal with it in that way rather than going and saying, oh, this new shiny little thing over there might help the situation. So it's great first step for sure.
Yeah, I think always just thinking about, okay, well, so we're programmed to be with someone and to have the oxytocin going for about 2 years.
Mm.
and then it's programmed to wear off because we're supposed to go and populate and to mate with other people, essentially. If you think about it in like evolution terms, then when the oxytocin wears off, I was left at home going, gosh, we're just on a Sunday, we're watching Country File, an Antiques Roadshow.
Oh, wow.
I'm showing my age now. But it's like, okay, that's quite boring. And you do that for a number of years, and there must be something else out there. And of course, you can have these spicy situations, which do put some energy back, but it's about creating a healthy way to do that. And I've learned the hard way. I learned the really hard way because we jumped in head first. We did a lot of play. We did a lot of high dopamine hitting and hedonism. And it was only after we didn't do the work on ourselves, that person, until 10 years down the line, let's just say.
Wow.
So and at that time, I can look back and think, oh, those moments were really fun, but they were very unconscious, very unconscious. And you have to remember that when you meet people, you will meet. I'm not a believer that there's a one soulmate out there for everyone. I think there's multiple soulmates out there for people.
I agree. Yeah.
Even if we say the word soulmate, I don't believe in the soulmate word, but that really strong connection. If there's how many people are we saying that there are on the planet now? Is it 8 billion or something?
Yeah. I don't believe in a soulmate.
No. So when you take that, I've had enough connections with people, let's just say, over the period of time that I've been a grown adult and being obviously meeting people, to know that I've had connections with people at different times. And at that time, that felt like my soulmate for that period of time. And what we have is something called new relationship energy. Now, new relationship energy is like putting all the oxytocin, all of the yummy stuff, all of the kind of like the feel good feelings that you get when you're falling in love, and you've just met that new person, you're excited for the future, and you just want to rip each other's clothes off, and you just want to have a baby, but you don't actually want to have a baby. All of that stuff. And it's like bottling it. And that's new relationship energy.
Yeah.
And that can last a good few years, to be honest. And then actually knowing, how much do I want to have the affair with the man at work or the woman at work that is giving me all this new relationship energy? Or is that just swapping out one person for the other person, like different actors in the same script that you've got? So you still are looking for the same connection, but you're like, oh, I don't get it from them anymore, so I'll swap them in to get it. But actually, maybe there's something about your narrative, your scripts that need looking at. And that's why you can work with the therapist and the coach to help to go, okay, is it actually an affair I want? Is it actually an open relationship I want? Is it a complete change of dynamic? Or is it more emotional connection? Create that with my partner. Is it trying different things with sex? What does that look like? And I think really trying to nail down, if you don't want to completely throw everything out and try everything new and disrupt everything as you've got it, is okay, let's pinpoint some different bits to look at, and let's look at the reasons why this feels very appealing, why it feels like being drawn to different people in different situations. And let's look at the reality of it, really.
Yeah. Gosh, a lot of food for thought there. My brain's, yeah, it's so interesting because a lot of the time we don't want to go deep into all these uncomfortable feelings and admitting where something might not be feeling good and saying that to our partners. And then one of you might not be feeling great about it. There's so much around it. But then when we really do, there's so much to learn and so much beauty and so much experience that we can have if we're just honest with ourselves and each other, right? It's fascinating. Thank you so much. There is definitely more. We're going to have to do another podcast because there's so much more I want to speak to you about. But I hope that's given people food for thought. And how can people find you, Gemma?
Yeah, so people can find me under Jemma Hardell Therapy on Instagram or LinkedIn as well. And I guess I follow you, you follow me. So people can find me through, if you tag me on your page, people can find me. And then I have got a brand new website coming very soon. So yeah, people can always request that when it's up and running as well.
And I will put your details on the show notes as well.
Amazing.
So we'll contact you there. So yes, thank you so much. And I will speak to you again soon, hopefully. And yeah, thank
And
you.
thanks for having me.
Hours. Thanks.
Cheers. Bye.